Hello and welcome to a short video showing you how to line a 4mm panelled coach using a ruling pen. Now I did this because I couldn't actually find anything on the internet showing you how to do it. There's the Right Track DVD on painting where Ian Rathbone takes you through using a ruling pen, but that's about all. So I thought it would be useful to document what I'm doing here with the Rails Dynamometer Car. So the Rails Dynamometer Car, I decided I was going to strip right back to the bare body and paint it myself in a teak finish, but unlike the model as it comes, I wanted to fully line it, which is what I believe it carried for Mallard's steam run. So here you can see I've lined one side, hopefully the camera will focus on it. And it's come out quite fine, which I'm very pleased with, and I'm about to start the second side. And at this point I thought, well, it's probably going to be easier to do a video than it is to try and describe it in textual form. So let's start off then just by looking at some of the tools I'll be using. So first of all, the most important one of course is the ruling pen itself. So here's a ruling pen I use. It's a Kern model. This particular one came from a drawing set. It's been honed. Now I don't intend to cover honing in this particular video. I might do a separate video for it at a later point in time. Honing basically means you're preparing the tip so that the prongs are the right length and they're as fine as they can be and as smooth as they can be to help the paint flow. This particular ruling pen is a hinged one, so the blades will pivot to allow cleaning, but unfortunately I've used this one on the other side of the coach and I really don't want to disturb the setting, so I'm not going to show it unhinging. In addition to the ruling pen, we're going to need some paint, and in this instance I'm using Humble Gloss. This is Humble Gloss 7, which from memory is the buff colour. The LNER used a Primrose, and this contrasts quite nicely with the teak, and therefore is the colour I choose for representing Primrose. In addition to the paint, we need some thinner. Now this is a IKEA tea light holder glass, quite cheap, nice little size, nice and stable on the baseboard. And in this instance it's got a small measure of white spirit. I'm going to use this for clean-up purposes, to correct mistakes that inevitably will happen with a ruling pen. As part of the clean-up also, we need a brush. Any fine tip brush will do. This particular one is from the Daler-Rowney graduate range. It's called a spotter. I'm just about to see it there, hopefully if the thing focuses. And this one is a 10-0, so it has a very fine tip. Now in fairness, this one's being used quite a lot and it's starting to fray out a little bit, so it probably needs to be replaced sooner rather than later. But in reality they're not that expensive, so it's not a big deal. Working something like this, and certainly in my case where I'm getting a bit on the old side, some form of magnification so I can actually see what I'm doing is useful. In this instance I've got a pair of my reading glasses and I put a 4x magnifier on top, so I can swap my normal varifocals for those when I'm actually doing the lining. What else do we need? We need something to use the ruling pen against, some form of ruler. Now I quite like using set squares, things like that, beveled set squares. Rather than a normal ruler, for the simple reason it usually gives you quite a bit you can grip off of the actual coach itself. And for some of the smaller lengths where you really can't fit those in, I take a normal ruler like this and I've cut sections off to give me some special little lengths there to get in at certain details where I can't do it with the large set squares. I've also got a collection of cocktail sticks, stirring the paint and putting the paint in the ruling pen. Just in case there's some cotton swabs, sometimes they're useful to clean stuff off if you make a mistake. Touch wood, hopefully I won't make a mistake today, but you never know. That's the excitement of doing things live like this. I've got some tin foil prepared, ready for mixing paint on should I need it. I've also got some layers or pieces of kitchen towel ready. Invariably there will be some form of clean up needed or some form of mopping up needed, so they're ready. I also have a piece of styrene that I've sprayed with a Halford's paint, so I can use that as a test piece. As you can see looking here, I've tried various rules with a ruling pen when setting it up, and it's useful just to check that the paint is flowing before using it on the model. If you're a little bit nervous about painting straight onto the model initially, then by all means use a practice piece. Quite a useful thing I found was this is a pair of ratio Midland sides which have very similar panelling to the Dynamometer car, and so these were painted in my teak finish, and I used them as a form of practicing for the lining. Hopefully that's everything, so I think without further ado we'll have a go at lining the coach. Okay, so this is the side I've already lined, and I'm using this so I can illustrate things on it. Now if I was to line the various pieces one after the other, the chances are the paint will still be tacky, and when I put the rulers or the set squares onto the side, they will stick into the paint and they will ruin it. So you have to be extremely patient with this particular job. So what I do is I would tend to line the top bits first, there, top of doors, etc., and finally underneath the waist. Let that cure off, then turn the model around and do the other pieces, there, and the doors again. Let that cure off and then turn it around sideways, do the side pieces, let those cure, and do those side pieces, let those cure, and then finally do the corners, and that should be it. Now the Humbrol paint takes up to about 3 hours to go off. You can help the matter by standing the model on a warm radiator, not a hot one, and that will help cure the enamel a bit quicker. But if you work that out, there's at least 15 hours of drying time there in the process, so you can't rush the job. For the purposes of doing this demo, I don't intend to take 15 hours to do it and spread it out. So what I'll do is I will do a small section of the carriage where I think I can get away with doing all the sides in one go, and that's for these lower panels here. If you notice, there's a couple of door handles on the side there, so what will happen is when the set squares and so on are put in place, then they will cause the set square to stand off from the surface and hopefully be able to do the lining all the way around in one go, so you can see the final thing being finished off. Right. Because the other side has already been lined, I'm putting it on a piece of kitchen towel just to help support it and stop it scratching. So the first thing to do is to prepare some paint. So I'm going to take tin foil and I'm going to take the Humbrol gloss and open it up. Like so, and cocktail stick, and we'll just stir it up. Let's try and do it so you can see what I'm actually doing. All of the recommendations are that you use the Humbrol paint extremely thick. This one out the tin actually worked out quite thick, and in practice I find I need to thin it a little bit, so I'm just going to put some onto the tin foil there, like so. Just put that down, and I'm going to pick up my ruling pen and take my sample piece of styrene. Let's just put that there for the moment. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing, and I'm just going to load the ruling pen with the paint. Another piece of kitchen towel just to clean the tip or the paint on the side, and you can see the pen there has got some paint loaded. I'm left-handed, so I tend to use the pen that way round, so it's honed with that in mind. The funny thing is, if you do forget and try and do it the other way around, it's surprising what a difference it makes on the actual trying to draw a line. So let's just check to see if it'll draw a line on the styrene. And it is in this instance, so I haven't had to thin it, which is good. Right, so quick swap over to my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. One model on the bench. Now I'm left-handed, so I'm trying to think, let's try and reposition the camera. Bear with me. Hopefully that will allow you to see a little bit more what's going on. Right, so I'm going to take the set square. I'm going to take the side. Now I tend to prefer using the ruler or the set square with the bevel upwards, and you'll notice I'm standing it a little bit away from the panelling and then very carefully trying to stop the thing moving as much as possible. I'm going to try and draw the line in. And that's drawn a very fine line. I've no idea whether that registered on the camera. I might have to move the position. Let me just check. Okay, I've moved the camera and I hope that you might be able to see it. I do apologise if you can't. And I managed to put the ruling pen on the tissue, and you'll notice all my paint has leaked out, so I better put a little bit more in. In fact, having got paint on the one I'm resting on, I think I'm going to play safe and replace it so I don't get paint on the model. Cleanliness is, as they say, next to godliness. Right, so there's the first line on the coach, and I can turn it round, and hopefully the door handles will allow me to position the ruler in the right place, and I can draw the lower line. Just going to extend the top line a little bit around the door handle, like so. Right, now you'll notice that this line is not as neat as it could be, so I'm going to need to do a little bit of a clean up, try and improve it. So for example, it's leaked a little bit down there and it's a bit thick there, so I'm going to dip my clean up brush in thinner, and I'm just going to wipe the worst of it off on another piece of tissue, and then very carefully, hopefully this will come up, I'm just going to wipe the brush very gently along where it's splodged. And likewise at the top, which I've just put in, that line's a little on the thick side, so I'm just going to try and thin it down just a fraction. And there we have it. Now it's important to make sure you're happy with the line, because once it's cured, it's not so easy to fix. So let's just do another tiny clean up here. Hoping this is in range of the camera. And there we have it. So bear in mind that normally this would be done in 2 separate sessions. I'm speeding it up for the purposes of this video. Well, they say if something can go wrong, it will, and for some reason my last video cut out. The camera decided it had enough, So you've got a slight continuity problem now. So what happened was previously I was lining this panel here, and I painted the end curves, but that's the bit that cut out. So I now need to demonstrate how the curves were done. In this particular instance, what I've done is I've actually painted some additional lines ready to demonstrate here around the door and the panel underneath the door. So the first thing I will do is I will load up the ruling pen and give it a go. So let's charge the paint and the pen. Just wipe the tip. Let's just check the pen rules on the... Yep. So I'm going to do these by hand. Hopefully the camera will focus it in. And it's a question of drawing around the curve at the end. You'll notice it's not particularly neat, but we'll tidy that up again in a minute with the white spirit. Do around the door. Like so. So hopefully that can be seen. So now I need to tidy up using the brush and the white spirit. Again, just wipe the brush reasonably dry. The other end, and hopefully if the camera cuts out this time I'll have shown enough to be able to not have to do it again. Okay, so that door, paint has bled through a little bit there, so it's just clean it up a little bit. How's that looking? Alright, see a little bit there in the corner. I should say, when I'm lining or even tidying up with a paintbrush, I tend to hold my breath while I do it. You're less likely to move the actual piece. I think that will do. I think that will do very nicely. So hopefully the camera's got that and I won't have to do it again. Thank you for watching.